Welcome to a whatbinder.com educational video. Today we're going to take a look at how to embed your quotations. This is an important skill regardless of if you're writing an essay or just writing a short opinion piece or paragraph response. In both cases, you will need to use evidence from the text to support your ideas. Before you can embed your quotations, you'll need a source text. Here we have one. It's from Sammy's Quest, Dreams of the White Bird by M. Barltrop on page 1. I hear it getting closer. Do you know what that's like? When the footsteps crunch their way through the bramble headed straight for you, it's a terrifying sound. And to be clear, this isn't some small sound like a rabbit hopping through the underbrush. I don't want to hear anything about how I'm just a scared little girl who can't look after herself, because that's not it. This is the sound of a number of large creatures moving with purpose. If there's one thing my grandmother taught me well, and if we're being truthful with each other here, she didn't just teach me one thing. My grandmother taught me a great number of things. But if there's one thing she taught me, it was how to recognize the sounds of the forest. So that's the source text. That's what we're going to be working with here. The first question would be, tell me about Sammy. And here is where we can see the importance. So the first response is a well-answered piece. Sammy is not a scared little girl, but rather a brave heroine who is taught how to recognize sounds of danger in the forest. Some students may have responded to that question by just saying what they think and throwing down large quotations. Sammy is more than a scared little girl. I don't want to hear anything about how I'm just a scared little girl who can't look after herself. She is a brave heroine who knows how to recognize danger. My grandmother taught me a great number of things. It was how to recognize the sounds of the forest. Yes, these both get across ideas, and yes, they both use quotations from the source text, but one does it by fully embedding those words into their own writing and sentences. There is no harsh stop and start. This is done through the use of, as you can see, brackets and ellipses. So the two parts of the puzzle. First, let's look at brackets. Brackets are used to either add words, change words, or parts of words. We have the original here that I just read. Now let's try to modify it, making it stronger using brackets. Sammy is more than a scared little girl. She doesn't. We can already remove these first two bits and jump straight in. Want to hear anything about how I'm... Oh no! Can we put that there? Because we've already done she, but the quotation is I'm. Luckily, we can just use brackets to change that to she. But we've already said scared little girl, so she's, well, we'll come back to that next time. She's a scared little girl who can't look after herself. She is a brave heroine who knows, but we can skip that. Heroine whose grandmother taught me. Again, we're stuck on me. We don't want that. So bracket her a great number of things. Her grandmother taught her how to recognize dangerous sounds in the forest. Here we've used the brackets to replace the word the with dangerous and of with in. Let's read this. Sammy is more than a scared little girl. She doesn't want to hear about how she's a scared little girl who can't look after herself. She is a brave heroine whose grandmother taught her a great number of things. Her grandmother taught her how to recognize dangerous sounds in the forest. This is better already. But we can improve it once more through ellipses And ellipses allow you to skip over a word or words. So here, we can just put this in here and start modifying. Immediately, we know we already have scared little girl. So Sammy doesn't... So Sammy's more than a... We'll make that the quotation. Scared little girl. She doesn't want to hear about how she... We don't need this, so we can put an ellipses there. Can't look after herself. She is a brave heroine whose grandmother taught her a number of things, such as how to recognize sounds in the forest. All of a sudden, we have Sammy is more than a scared little girl. She doesn't want to hear anything about how she can't look after herself. She is a brave heroine whose grandmother taught her a number of things, such as how to recognize sounds in the forest. And that is a much stronger response by just using a few brackets and ellipses than what we started with here. In this one, it becomes obvious what you're trying to communicate, and you are only using the pieces you need. The last thing you need to do is show where those ideas came from. So the first time that a text is used, we need to put in the author's last name and the page number. But the next times, we only need the page number. Now if you take a look here, you'll see the final period always comes after the parentheses. So we're just going to move that here. And we are going to move this one here. This has shown you how you can go from a poor response that just throws in quotations everywhere to something that's using them in a focused way and actually showing where they come from. We're going to take a look at how to describe Sammy's grandmother. So let's say that we wanted to describe her using this source text once more. A poor response would say Sammy's grandmother is a wonderful woman who taught Sammy things. If there's one thing my grandmother taught me well, and if we're being truthful with each other here, she didn't just teach me one thing. My grandmother taught me a number of things, but if there's one thing she taught me, it's how to recognize sounds of the forest. She prepared Sammy for the dangers of the forest. When the footsteps crunch their way through the bramble, headed straight for you, it's terrifying sound. We're going to look at a strong response using everything that we have learned. So let's just make sure our source text is up there. Sammy's grandmother is a wonderful woman who taught her more than just one thing. Sammy's grandmother taught Sammy how to recognize the sounds of the forest. This was useful to Sammy when she had to tell the difference between a rabbit hopping through the underbrush and the terrifying sounds of footsteps that crunch through the bramble. So using everything we've learned, we've gone from a response where people simply put in quotations without thinking about it to ones that are embedded within the sentences themselves and that are fully cited. So just to read this one, Sammy's grandmother is a wonderful woman who taught her more than just one thing. Sammy's grandmother taught Sammy how to recognize the sounds of the forest. This was useful to Sammy when she had to tell the difference between a rabbit hopping through the underbrush and the terrifying sound of footsteps that crunched through the bramble. Hopefully you now have a strong understanding of the importance and way how to embed your references. If you have any more questions about how to embed your quotations, you can feel to get in touch in the comments below, or you can look up MLA in your Google and you will find hundreds of pages of how to properly use quotations and write works cited pages. This has been a whatbinder.com educational video. Thank you for watching.